it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class if you've not been watching my videos. I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Afternoon, everybody. How are you? It's Friday afternoon. Beck's blue for me. Hope you've had a good week. I saw something today that made me decide to do this video, which is actually a topic I've been wanting to talk about all year. And the thing I see all the time is people questioning the necessity of estate agents' existence. Why do they exist? Why are they here? Why do we need them? Why, honestly, why have we got to bother with them? And we've got the internet, put the property on the internet, find a buyer, right? Just don't need estate agents. And it's incredible how many people think this. And I myself was one of them. It's how I actually, a lot of people don't know this. I started in this industry, working in this industry, after I'd been a developer and a landlord a few times in the 90s and the early 2000s. I started with a company whose sole aim was to eliminate the reason for estate agents to exist. I went out, I got investors, I got a team together, and we started building a product called Property to Go, which is a terrible name. And the whole point was to cut out estate agents once and for all. Because I, too, didn't see the purpose of them. They're no longer necessary now that the internet's here. And that idea came about in the late 90s. Now, how did I end up from there to where I am now here today, advocating for good estate agents and wanting to end bad estate agency? And what I'm hoping is that this video will be especially helpful if you are a first-time buyer, or any buyer, but especially first-time buyer, and a first-time seller. But when you are a first-time buyer wanting to go out there and buy a home for the first time, you are the same as a first-time poker player coming to sit down at a poker table, and the other people that you're playing against all have more knowledge of the game than you do. Sellers have already been through the buying process once, and so they already have lived that experience that you've not yet lived. So they're one step ahead of you. Estate agents do it all day, every day for a living, so they know the game inside now, even the bad ones. And then the really good ones are the ones that always clean up at that poker table. And the whole point of this channel is to help those of you who are coming to this poker game that is trying to move home have a slightly better chance of not being cleaned out by the bad actors, and also by your own naivety and lack of understanding of how the game is played. Now, I'm not here to justify how the game is played. I'm not going to tell you that I think any of this is good or bad. I'm simply going to tell you the rules of the game and how it's played, and why the single reason that estate agents exist. In fact, for those of you who don't want to watch the whole video, I'll tell you right now, the one single reason that estate agents exist is because sellers want them to. The demand for estate agents is astonishing. More than 95% of people selling a house in the UK choose of their own free will. When they have the option to sell privately, they choose of their own free will to use an estate agent. And that is the single reason estate agents exist. And if it wasn't for sellers wanting to use an estate agent to sell their house, then they wouldn't exist, would they? Right? Nobody holds a gun to the head of someone selling their home and says, you have to use an estate agent. You have to. No, you don't have to. And yet they all do. So that's the reason they exist, right? Almost all home sellers and developers and people selling domestic residential property choose to use an estate agent. So if you want to blame anyone for the reason that estate agents exist, you can blame home sellers. But remember this, as a first-time buyer, there's a very, very high chance that you too will be a seller one day. And then you'll find out exactly why estate agents exist. Because when you're confronted with the question, do I need an estate agent? Should I sell it on my own? You will very quickly go, no. Let's use an estate agent. Let's use it. When you realize how much is, and even then, you won't fully appreciate how much is involved in the process of selling a house. Now, the next thing is this. This is a statement I make quite often that pisses off a lot of estate agents, and it's this. Most estate agents underestimate the value of what they do and don't understand what they do. And the very worst estate agents are the ones who think, estate agency, that's money for old rope. That's easy money. I'll set up as an estate agent and make easy money. The Bruce brothers who set up Purple Bricks, I rest my case. I mean, honestly, they thought that it was easy money and it went bust. And they also thought that by setting up Purple Bricks, everyone would stop using estate agents and use Purple Bricks instead. And look how that ended. Purple Bricks, after several years and hundreds of millions of pounds invested, and the last investor into Purple Bricks was a company called Axel Springer, a German media company, put, I think, 125 million pounds into it. Gone, lost it all. Purple Bricks was sold for £1. And that's probably the biggest example of people who don't understand what estate agents do. Now, I understand what they do, because when I set out in this business, I was just fascinated as to their reason for their existence, why they exist, and why it's such a godforsaken shit fight for people to move home and for estate agents to help them doing it. So this is a true statement. All estate agents have a very difficult job. Now, I didn't think that to begin with. That's why I thought I'd get rid of them all to start with, right? I actually thought that they were totally unnecessary. But all estate agents have a very difficult job. Most of them don't do it very well. Most estate agents do it badly precisely because it is more difficult than they were expecting it to be. It is so difficult that I have turned down huge sums of money to go and work for estate agencies and to help them. I have turned down huge sums of money from some of the biggest well-known companies who tried to say, Charlie, look, stop fucking around with what you're doing. Come and do a proper job. Come and help us run this estate agency. Nope. No, thank you. No, thank you. The number of estate agents who are in business because they just think it's easy money and then they learn the hard way that it's not. The number of estate agents who set up on their own as estate agents and then give up and fail quite quickly. I mean, it's a very, very high number of people who set up an estate agency, especially estate agents who've even been estate agents as an employee and then set up on their own and then found, oh, this was much harder than I thought. I bought and sold, okay, just so you know my property history. I bought a flat in Brighton. I lived in it briefly while I refurbished it, and then I rented it out to a tenant who I found through a lettings agent. And a year later, I sold that flat to the tenant. I then did exactly the same again with a flat in Hastings. This time it was a two-bedroom garden flat. I bought it. I was actually about to start the refurb work because it really needed it, but I put it on the market to rent anyway with an agent, just so I thought I might have a tenant lined up to move in as soon as I finished refurbishing it. And within a week, the agent had found me a tenant that said, look, we're happy to take it as it is. In fact, we'll do the refurb ourselves. Okay. And guess what? They bought it off me. And my third flat was in London. And I bought it, did exactly the same. Bought it, lived in it briefly. It was a studio flat in Chelsea Cloisters in London, which I bought with my girlfriend at the time. And I bought it, moved into it, and just refreshed it. Gave it a lick of paint, redid the bathroom and kitchen stuff, made it nice to rent it out. Rented it out. And then wanted to sell that one quite quickly. And this was the first time I didn't have a tenant to sell it to. I was doing, it was way before Airbnb, but I was doing short lets in that flat because it made sense to do that. And when it came to sell that flat, I found myself in the situation. Okay, so it was unusual for tenants to buy the flats off me. It was unusual, okay, but I needed to sell this flat, and bearing in mind this question, why do estate agents even exist? What is the point of an estate agent even existing? This is the first time I found myself going, maybe I'll use an estate agent. I thought, how do I go about selling? I'm busy, I'm working, I'm running a business. In fact, I had actually started the business Property to Go at this point, which was trying to cut out estate agents. So I was really conflicted about, I shouldn't really need to use them. I should just put it on the internet and it'll sell, right? No. So I chose to use an estate agent. And I actually made a good choice, and I sold the flat. I never even met the agent, okay? It was in a service department block. The porter had keys. I rang the estate agent and they said, we'll let ourselves in with the porter and we'll give you a call with the valuation. And they rang me up. And I remember their fee was 2.5%, but they were a company that I don't think they exist anymore, because this was a long time ago. They only sold studio flats. I think they were called Only Studios or something like that. They rang me back and they said, yeah, we can sell that for you. We can sell it pretty much straight away, and this is the price. And the price was way more than I paid for it. Right place, right time. I got lucky with the market. And their fee was 2.5%. And I thought to myself, oh, that seems high. Maybe I should try and have a haggle on that. And they were just like, no, that's our fee, it's 2.5%. But we'll sell it for you within a few days at that price. And I thought to myself, do I want to start ringing around other agents, or is it worth it? I thought, yeah, it's worth it. And they did, true to their word. They sold it with a few phone calls because they specialized in studios. They had a register of buyers. This is like very early days of the internet, so there wasn't really a property website as such. And they sold it within a week for asking price. And so my girlfriend and I at the time were very, very happy. And yet I still went ahead to set up this company called Property to Go to cut out estate agents. And we built a website and we created the technology to get photographs and a 360 video tour and the floor plan, and to allow anyone selling their house to do that from home onto our website, so that we wouldn't need estate agents anymore. We thought, just put it on the internet and you don't need anything else. I won't go into the long story about how I got from there to then ending up actually being a supplier to estate agents. But suffice it to say that there was no demand, right? I thought everyone would want to, but no, there was no demand for it. Everybody wanted to use estate agents. And we built this technology, we built this idea, we built the ability to go and capture this information and get up onto the internet in a day, which back then was unheard of. When people were still faxing photographs to their web company that were then scanning it and putting it up on a web page back in those days. And so I reluctantly started offering this technology to estate agents. And the very first client we got was actually a Countrywide brand, the Farron Satario, based in Notting Hill back then in London. And quite quickly, we grew really, really fast. We had lots of estate agents who were buying this technology of this one-stop photography, floor plan, and virtual tour service to get their properties onto the market. And what we basically did is, at that point, it used to take about 2 weeks from a seller saying, okay, I'll instruct you, to actually getting the property live. And we took that the process down from 2 weeks to 2 days. And that's what the agents liked about it, because agents were able to say to sellers, if you use us, we'll have your property on the market within 2 days. Everyone else takes 2 weeks. And that's kind of why it took off. And it did take off. And so I sort of reluctantly had these clients as these estate agents as clients, and it was going great guns, and it was booming, and it grew very fast. And we started doing it not only in London, but also we had a phone call from an estate agent in Sydney, McGrath, Sydney's biggest estate agent, saying, please, can you come do the same for us out here? And we did. Sorry, I'm speed talking, aren't I? I'll slow it down. But here's the point. I got to know these estate agent clients. And what I hadn't realized at the time, and I now, with the benefit of hindsight, realize is that I only really got very forward-thinking estate agencies doing this. Most of them went, no, we don't need all this newfangled technology. We're happy with our hard copy photographs and scanning them, and we don't need the internet. Honestly, I remember it. I remember some agents saying, oh, our clients don't use email. I mean, estate agents are the greatest technophobes in the world, with the exception of all these clients that I had who were genuinely forward thinking. Foxtons was doing it, and so we were offering these other agents the ability to compete with Foxtons. I have gone off on a bit of a tangent here. Let me come back. So you're a first-time buyer. What do you need to know? You need to understand that estate agents exist because sellers want them to. And ignoring people who are doing it for profit, let's just talk about sellers who need to move. They need to move house. They need to sell before they can buy somewhere else. And they need to buy somewhere else because their family's growing, someone's died, they've divorced, they've got to change for schools or relocate for a job. And so people who are busy with life and family haven't got time to try and sell the house themselves, and they use an estate agent, right? And what they can afford to move into next is dictated by how much money they can get for the house now, which leads to the problem of overvaluing an estate agent and say, oh, we can get you more than they can, and lying about it, and the overvaluing being the biggest problem there is. And this, of course, is why first-time buyers are so frustrated with estate agents, because of this overvaluing thing, where sellers are all opting to choose to use an estate agent to sell their house. They, like me, when I first sold that flat with agents in London, I just thought that agents were a necessary evil. Thought, oh, I don't like using them, but I'm too busy, so I'll just use one, right? And still underestimated the value of them. And so most sellers will go out and be easily seduced by the agent that promises the highest value, and then they will sign on the dotted line without reading the small print that locks them into a long-term sole agency contract with an agent that, as often as not, in fact, more often than not, will then not sell their home and will actually obstruct their ability to move on with their life. And that's a problem I'm trying to solve. I want to kill overvaluing. I want to kill long-term sole agency contracts. I want to make sure no seller ever again finds himself in a position where they are stuck with a shit agent they should never have signed up with, unable to leave because they signed a contract, and therefore unable to move on with their life. So understand this context, right? You've got sellers who need to move for life reasons. You've got them, and you as the buyer are talking to the agent they've chosen to sell their house. And I can tell you, it is honestly not most sellers' fault when they end up choosing a bad agent. It's very, very difficult. If you don't understand the value of what agents do, it's very difficult to find the right agent. It's why it's such an important choice. It's why I say it's the single most important choice you'll ever make as a seller moving house, is the choice of agent. But they've chosen an agent that, for better or worse, they thought was the right one to go with at the time. And if you as a buyer are having a terrible experience, then it's thanks to the seller, not the agent, that they chose that bad agent, that you now want to buy that house and you're having to register with them. But now we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, right? Buyers are frustrated because in normal market times, it's so hard to even get taken seriously, isn't it? Right? Agents don't even call you back. You feel like you have to beg for a viewing. And then even if you get a viewing, they just say, oh, no, we've got other people who are interested and they're offering this, and you find yourself in a bidding. It's just a horrific nightmare. You want to get into a home. You want to buy a home. But the hoops you have to jump through and the humiliation you have to endure to even have a chance of buying a home are so horrible that a lot of buyers just give up. And I don't blame you, because most agents don't do this well. And the vast majority of ordinary mainstream homes coming on the market go on with the bad, big, overvaluing corporates who arguably, with very few exceptions, but arguably give the worst service levels of all and are the most guilty of conditional selling and trying to force you to use their in-house mortgage broker, which, by the way, is illegal. If you are told you can't view a property or can't make an offer on a property without talking to the in-house mortgage broker, that is illegal. And you should say to the agent, isn't that illegal? Isn't that conditional selling? That's what you should say. So what I'm trying to do with this channel is to give you the information, the poker information about how this poker game is played. If your objective is to actually secure the home you want at a price you can afford, you've got to play by the rules of the game. I didn't make the rules, but they are the rules. And if you want to buy a home, them's the rules. And like, no matter how much you think that they're unfair rules, if you refuse to play by those rules, you will simply not be given a home. You will not be given the opportunity to buy one. You will be dismissed by the agents as a waste of time. if you're an angry foot stamping buyer, I get that you're angry and stamping your feet, and I'm not saying that you don't have every right to be angry and stamp your feet, because it is a shit system that we have in England. Scotland is so much better. Committed seller, committed buyer, offer accepted, that's it, you're committed to the transaction. I don't know why we haven't got that system in England, but we don't. We just don't. And therefore, if your objective is to go and tell everyone else how you think the world should work, then go out and do that, but you won't end up with a home. If your objective is to buy a home, accept the shitty rules of the shitty game and go in armed. Remembering that estate agents exist because sellers want them to, that is a fact. That is an incontrovertible fact. Estate agents only exist because sellers want them to. Right? There's no other reason. If sellers didn't want them to exist, they wouldn't exist. They just wouldn't be a business. They would just go. This isn't the video when I want to go in to tell you why estate agency is so complicated and so difficult. Just take my word for it in this video. Genuinely, it is complicated and difficult to get a property sold in the English and Welsh marketplace. It's teeth-pullingly, wasp-chewingly difficult. And that's something I genuinely am working very hard to try to resolve with Best Agent. That's why I want to bring transparency to house prices. That's why I want to make it easier. And we're already, in fact, with clients, with those of you who are choosing to use the conveyancers that I work with, the average transaction time has come down from 5 months to 90 days. So we're already doing it 40% faster, which massively reduces the chance of a fall through as well for those of you who are buying or selling using the conveyancers that I work with. And so if you accept the fact that estate agents exist because sellers want them to, and stop beating up on the estate agents for their existence, and especially the individuals who are just there making a living. Yes, I know they do it badly, right? And I'm not excusing that. And genuinely, that needs to be better. But right, whatever the reasons are, it's not better. But your best chance of getting the home you want is to go, this is a human being earning a living. They exist because their clients, the sellers, want them to. And if I want to buy that home, I'm going to have to work with this agent. Not only am I going to have to work with them, I'm going to have to be the buyer whose offer they recommend if they're recommending me against any other offers. And if you get this right, your offer may not even be the highest offer, and yet it will still be the one that gets recommended because you are the most reasonable, likely to proceed, well-informed, well-researched buyer, rather than the Johnny-come-lately who doesn't know, who offers over but hasn't got anything lined up and is just going to be a flaky buyer. So moving is my mission, to make moving easier, whether you're selling, whether you're buying, or both. And the purpose of this video is to try to get you to understand that your best chance of moving is to accept the poor state of play that exists and position yourself to make the best of that poor state of play. Don't choose a cheap agent. Don't sign a long-term sole agency agreement. I mean, if you've listened to my videos and you've chosen to ignore those 2 bits of advice and you have a bad experience, I'm sorry, I don't know what else I can do to help you. Do not choose an estate agent because they have a cheap fee. It won't save you money. I mean, the only reason those of you choosing a cheap estate agent are choosing a cheap estate agent is because you think it's going to save you money. You are completely wrong. The cheapest estate agent is the one that actually gets you sold at the highest price. That's the cheapest estate agent, right? How cheap is an estate agent that doesn't even get you moved? Well, you haven't paid them anything, but you haven't moved either. And if you need to sell, how much of a mistake is that? Don't get the cart before the horse. There's no point in putting your cheap fee before actually moving, which is what so many sellers do. Such a mistake. And I'm not talking about the unrealistic sellers who are just thinking of moving. I'm talking about the ones who need to move and can't move because they chose a shit agent and signed a contract with them, a long-term sole agency contract. Honestly, some of the best agents I know do not even have a contract. It's just verbal. It's like, yeah, we'll sell your house. If you're not happy, let me know. And if you can't fix it, you're free to go. So if you ignore that advice, then if you're a new watcher of my videos, by the way, go back to my early YouTube videos. There's one called The 4 Golden Rules of Choosing a Estate Agent. Please watch that. But if you're a buyer, don't punch yourself in the face, metaphorically speaking, with your effort to buy a home by going around lecturing people whose job you don't understand. I'm not saying that they're not doing it badly. Most of them don't do it very well at all, which is why it's so important that the sellers choose the right agent. But even if they are doing it badly, if they've got the home you want to buy, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face if you're going to be difficult with them, right? They have a job that is more difficult than you will ever know. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, rubbish, Charlie, you don't know what you're talking about. I really fucking do know what I'm talking about, more than almost anybody, right? I have had estate agents of all shapes and sizes, all around the country. The estate agent who sells the most expensive homes in the country was my client for over 10 years. But his address book was an address book of billionaires, and it sat in my CRM system. And I've also had agents who are very high volume, very low end on price, selling properties that are just less than £100,000. And I've seen it all. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I do understand. And I am completely impartial here. I have nothing to sell to you guys. This is free wisdom and advice and insight and experience. So if you hear me and choose to ignore me, you get what's coming, right? Because this is completely impartial advice, whether you're a buyer or a seller. I just want to help people move. And if you're an agent watching this, all I can tell you is honesty pays. It loses you business in the short term, for sure. But when you start to build a reputation locally as an honest, trustworthy agent, you will start to get business walking in the door. I'm saying this from experience of agents I've worked with who started up from scratch, and within 2 years, more than half of their business is just walking off the street because of the reputation they've earned themselves. Honesty pays. Don't lie to your customers. Be honest with your clients, for fuck's sake. Honestly, I mean, overvaluing all the agents who indulge willingly and knowingly, because I know that there are estate agents who reluctantly overvalue because otherwise they won't win the business, and they try to talk the clients down. I get that. I'm not talking to you guys. Actually, I'm talking to you guys. I'm saying to you guys, please, please, please try harder and harder and harder to resist the temptation to agree to a seller's demands and what they want for their property if you know it's not worth that. They'll come back to you, right? Just say to them, look, if you don't go with me, please just don't sign a long-term sole agency contract. That was a ramble, pointless ramble, but I hope it was useful, because I just want to help you move. Buyer or seller, I just want to help you move. I'm going to finish with this. I had just give me 1 second, guys, because I want to get this up on screen. It is worth it. Had someone put a comment in here. I get a lot of people asking me, why, Charlie, do you care what house prices are doing? Why are you talking the market down? Why are you being so negative on house prices? And I keep on pointing out, I'm just trying to be transparent. I just want there to be transparency about the housing market. And I'm trying to help buyers avoid being tricked into overpaying for homes and later regretting it. I've had someone just today tell me that they know that happened to them. The agent used FOMO to get them to bid too much, and they YOLO'd their way into offering. FOMO and YOLO often go hand in hand. Fear of missing out, and you only live once. I love the way YOLO has become a verb, but that's literally what they did. The agent FOMO'd them, so they YOLO'd their way into overpaying for a home. But here is the comment I wanted to read you. I know I have moaned at you on here, and I'm sorry if I added to you getting backlash. It's really brave of you to put yourself out there amidst all the polished turds like Phil, what's his name? I wholeheartedly agree with you about misleading articles. And I can say that when I was 21, I was sucked in and rushed into buying a home. I was chucked out at 16 with no dodgy bedsits to live, and believe me, they were not safe places for a young lass to be living back in the late 1980s. I rushed into that purchase and almost immediately plummeted into negative equity in 1990/91. It took me 12 years to sell again after negative equity for all those 12 years. Believing articles in the newspapers and news on TV back then altered my life path and had such a negative effect. I believe now the powers that be are deliberately driving this narrative all over again. In my opinion, this barefaced manipulation is being maneuvered to make people panic into buying a home. Anyway, I do appreciate you highlighting all this fucking bullshit and turd polishing. It's brave of you, and thank you. Please, younger people, do listen to Charlie. Anyway, I know there are lots of you. I haven't actually looked at the comments here. Hello, guys. Do you guys have any questions about anything I've said in this video? Urban Achiever, that's a good question. Do estate agents play by the rules, Charlie? Some do, most don't. They play by the rules of the street, if you know what I mean, because there's no enforcement. There's no oversight and no enforcement, which is why I totally resent this property mark bullshit that these agents are qualified with the NAEA name. You know, they are some of the worst offenders in my experience of breaking the rules. Yeah, okay. So Mike Dennington makes a comment, and I just think this is an unkind personal remark, right? All those who can't do much become agents. All right, Mike, I get that. A lot, and you're not on your own. A lot of people say that, but I can remember one particular instance when a long time ago, a friend of my sister's, my younger sister's, went and got a job at Douglas and Gordon because she said, I just want to help people move home. I think that sounds like a nice thing to do. I get to see lots of nice homes. I get to meet lots of people. And she naively thought it would be a nice job. And she quit within 3 months because she said, I just can't believe how horrible people are. And so I tried to push back against this personal criticism. I think by all means criticize people's actions, people's statements, people's choices, but don't criticize the people. All right? Because, what if it is someone who didn't get the same life chances, who didn't get the same opportunities, and has come out and has not been able to find a job to earn a good enough living anywhere else, and has taken a job as an estate agent? You just have to respect how people choose to make their living. You don't have to respect it if they try and mess you around, and that I'm not saying that, right? But don't automatically treat them all the same simply because they're estate agents. That's just not fair. You end up treating a lot of good people very badly if you do that. Okay, Mike, sorry, you made another good point here. So Mike says, I showed an estate agent my bank printout showing I had the cash, and he gave it to the seller who wanted more money as they said I could afford it. Well, did the seller say that, Mike? Or did the agent just say that the seller said that? Because this is where agents will play games. And this is why you should just you make your offer and they can take it or leave it, right? Did they get more money anywhere else? Because if they did, then they would. If not, then they can still sell it to you. So if you are very price sensitive, which most first-time buyers are, then you shouldn't get into a bidding scenario and you should walk away. In this market, this is the best time in 15 years to have a good chance of finding a property that's for sale in your budget that has no offers on it and that you are the only offer. And those are the opportunities right now. Those opportunities are right now. As soon as the news that the property market really has bottomed out and started climbing again, because, by the way, Halifax Nationwide saying house prices have gone up the last couple of months. Both of them are also saying that they're expecting to go down next year. No one's reporting that, bizarrely, but that's what they are saying. So we're nowhere near the bottom yet. The bottom won't come until after 2024. And when the bottom really has happened and starts to be reported, it'll already be too late. So if you want a home and can afford a home, be out there looking for the properties that have been on the market for a long time and don't have any offers. And when agents tell you there are other offers, walk away and say, give me a call if they all fall through. You know, this is how you can play them at their own game, the poker face, right? And it's not even a poker face because it's real. Just say, look, I'm not interested in getting into a bidding scenario in this falling market. I'm just not interested in a bidding scenario. But if you have a home that's got no offers on it and a motivated seller, let me know. I'll come and look at it. And if I like it, I'll put in a real offer on it. Lugo99 says, correct. My cheap estate agent was catastrophic. Thank you. Yeah. So catastrophic cheap agent made you miss the turning point in the market. Do you mean they made you miss the top? Do you mean the top had already happened and you missed it as a seller? I'm assuming so. Yeah, okay, Lucy Hayes makes the point, which contradicts what I'm saying. We did choose the cheapest, but not because they were the cheapest. They were the most recommended to us. Okay, that's different. If that's why you chose them, that's okay. You didn't choose them because they were the cheapest, okay? And they were the most recommended, and it looks like for good reason. They got you sold in a month for your asking price, you know. But I'm expecting, Lucy, that was a self-employed individual, wasn't it? Because they are the worst at undercharging, I think, and they work themselves to the bone. Yeah, the reviewer says, keeping the deal alive is the toughest part of an estate agent's job. This is absolutely true. The real work for an estate agent starts in holding a deal together once an offer has been accepted, because there are so many parties involved. You've got the buyer, the seller, buyer solicitor, seller solicitor, agent, surveyor, and valuer. Maybe not surveyor, but the valuer. There's all those people involved in the process. And holding a deal together really is hard work. Mike Dennington, so thank you for updating us on this. So that seller sold 4 months later for less than your offer, right? So that is a missed opportunity for you as well, isn't it? Right, as well as the seller. And that is just an example of a terrible agent, like a really, really bad agent, because the agent should have actually recommended your offer as a cash buyer. And if you'd left your offer on the table rather than walking away, maybe you'd have got it for the price you wanted. Bobby O says, how would you negotiate the price on a new build flat? On new builds, if possible, always try and find more than one that you'd be happy to buy, and then play them off against each other. Play the agents and the developers at their own game and say, well, I'm only going to buy one. I've got the one you're selling, or that one over there. Make sure there is another one that you would buy, and say, I'm going to buy whichever one is the best deal. And you'll quickly find out what the best deal is. If you don't have another one to offer on, then just make your maximum comfortable offer, leave it on the table, and say that's my first and final offer. Don't get into backwards and forwards. Just make your offer and leave it on the table. Annie Anonymous asks me, Connells, Charlie, when are you doing a Connells expose? It's not just Connells, it's Spicer Hart as well. You're talking about conditional selling. There's no point in expose. Like, the Times has done an expose. Until someone who has lost out as a result of this can be bothered to actually take a legal case against these guys, they will continue to get away with it, right? They will continue. No one has got the time or the money to sue them, right? Suing people, even if you win, is very expensive and very time consuming. It's just not something anybody wants to do. And the authorities are not out there looking for us. No one's going to chase it up. This is a failure of enforcement. And all we can do is, every time any one of you experience this conditional selling, where an agent says to you, no, sorry, you've already got your own mortgage in principle, but we won't show you the property or put your offer forward unless you come with our in-house mortgage guy. You need to call them out and go, that's conditional selling, that's illegal, stop it right now or I'm going to expose you. And of course, a lot of buyers don't do that because they don't want to do themselves out of the home that they want to buy. But just call the agent's bluff. Right, good question here from Nathan M. How much time and training does it take to be an estate agent? I have witnessed people starting up an estate agency from outside the industry because they had money. So they've got zero experience, but they were successful. And one was a lawyer, one was a banker. And they came into the industry with thinking, oh, I know how to do this. This is easy. I'm a businessman. And they fell flat on their face and failed and lost their money. One of them set up on their own as an individual estate agency. And I know that because they actually became a client of my systems. And I remember trying to advise them. I remember who told, I'm a lawyer, Charlie, so you don't do to, I know what I'm doing. I was like, no, you really don't. They got really upset, and they failed quite quickly. The other one was an ex-Goldman Sachs banker who had millions, and he went and bought, a long time ago, back in the early 2000s, he bought Chestertons from the people who were failing to make it work at the time. And said, I'm going to turn this into the new Savills. I'm a successful banker. I know what I'm doing. And he fell flat on his face, and it went bust again, and then got bought out by the Chinguiz brothers from him. So that's why Chesterton still exists. It kept on being bought and sold and bought and sold. There are training courses, and a lot of agents do training courses. So anyone that has got that MNAEA after their name has done the training courses from Property Mark, which, by the way, those training courses are good. I recommend them, and it definitely shows a bit more commitment to professionalism when someone has got those letters after their name. But by no means does it mean that they're going to be the best agent for you, nor does it mean they're going to be honest. And some of the best and most honest agents I know didn't do that training. So one of the best agents I know started age 16, straight out of school, didn't do A-levels, just had GCSEs, went and worked for his local estate agency for a while as an employee, learnt the trade, loved it, got passionate about it, set up on his own, and hasn't looked back. And he's been working for himself 15 years now, and is very successful. He didn't do any training. He learnt on the job. He had the right attitude. So there is an argument. So in Australia, you have to pass exams to be an estate agent. In America, you have to pass exams to be an estate agent. In the UK, you don't have to pass exams to be an estate agent. And lots of people think that you should have to pass exams. And whilst I can see that there is an argument for that, that will not solve the industry's problems, and that will not get rid of the shysters. It might get rid of some of the least competent people, but I promise you it won't solve the problems. Are there still dishonest agents in Australia who've passed exams? Yes. Are there dishonest agents in America who've passed exams? Yes. So just doing exams doesn't solve the problem for the consumer. And there is something called the ROPA, the Regulation of Property Agents, that's supposed to be coming to Parliament in the next few years. Which is more I mean, there is already masses of regulation of estate agents. None of it's enforced. Chen Gutu, this is a very good question. If your property is under offer, should estate agents be marking it as sold subject to contract on Rightmove? Should you still be doing viewings, especially if buyer has not stipulated in their offer? These are very good questions. And if you've got a very good agent, they will advise you on this. And it will depend upon the offer that you've accepted. So if you are happy with the offer you've accepted and you're keen for it to go through, keeping the property on the market is more likely to make the buyer just back out if things are looking shaky. It may also have the other effect of making them hurry up and secure it and complete the purchase quickly. It is a negotiation point that you can make when the offer is made. So, for example, the buyer might say, here's my offer. You might say, well, it's lower than I really want, but I'll accept it if you let me continue marketing it on the internet or on Rightmove or anywhere else. To which the buyer can say yes or no, right? The buyer can say no. If you accept my offer, it's conditional that it's marked as sold and or taken off the internet completely. Now, the seller might then say, well, okay, need to see some commitment. You might then choose to do one of these committed offers where you actually put money down up front to show your commitment to the offer. All of these things are open to conversation. There are some agents that don't mark anything as sold until it's exchanged. And some of those agents say that it's a way of keeping the buyer on their toes to hurry up and not delay, and to make sure that they keep other buyers interested in case that buyer falls through. And sellers don't mind that. But as a buyer, you do have the right to say it is a condition of my offer that you take it off the internet. Now, if a buyer does make that condition, then the seller you can expect the seller to also offer some additional commitment in return. For example, buy your search pack on day one so that I know you've got some skin in the game. Should you still be doing viewings, especially if the buyer's not stipulated? Again, it's the same thing, Chen. That's a negotiation point, but whatever you do, just be transparent about it. Yeah, there's some good questions here. Roland, I'll take your question actually next second. Nathan M says, what are my thoughts on reservation deposits to find a committed buyer? Just a few hundred or 1,000 to cover your initial costs? You mentioned an unofficial agreement in previous videos. Yeah, so if you go and look at the, I've done a draft offer email for first-time buyers, which you can find on my website, mhwc.co.uk. And that's just, it's on a web page, and there's also a Google Doc that you can just go and copy and paste it and then customize it for yourself. And in there, I make some suggestions of things that you can request as part of your offer. For example, if the seller chooses to back out of the deal, will they agree to pay half the buyer's costs, that kind of stuff. There are reservation deposits. There are products that do that. In fact, next week, I'm talking to a company who does provide those, about potentially offering them through Moving Home with Charlie and through Best Agent. I mean, it's a catch-22, these reservation deposits, because yes, they can work. If the seller and the buyer both want to commit to the transaction, it can be a very good way to secure a transaction. But a lot of buyers are very nervous in this market, and they might only offer because they know that they got the option to back out if things change too much. And as a seller, that might be your only offer. And so you might scare buyers away by demanding a committed reservation deposit. Again, it's down to, I would ask the agent, it's down to the quality of the offer, the position of the buyer. If you're a buyer with nothing to sell, that's different from being a buyer that has got something to sell. That changes the risk presentation for the seller. All of these things are why it's so complicated. This is why estate agents are so necessary. They really are. There's so many. Look at all these questions you guys have got, right? And the answer to all of these questions is different depending on the exact circumstances, the market you're in, the seller's situation, the buyer's situation, the price that's been agreed. So many things that make every single transaction absolutely unique. Yeah, Emmanuel Ovi says, being a first-time home buyer is hard and tough out there viewing. Yes, it is. It really, really is. And that's the whole point of this video, is to try to let you guys understand the rules of the game. I am not defending them. I am not advocating them. I'm just saying them's the rules. If you want to buy a house and make it easier on yourself as a first-time buyer, understand and know the rules, even if you don't like them. It makes it better for you. One day you'll be likely to be a seller as well. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was interesting. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye, guys.